Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. And if you are just tuning in with me for the very first time, it's so nice to meet you. And I'm really glad you're here with me today. I am your host, Heather Carey, nutritionist, chef, mom, and a woman who has been around the block with food. I want to open up about real food in relation to health, weight, and our bodies so you can make peace with what you eat. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Real Food Stories podcast. You know, I started this podcast because I strongly believe that everybody has their own food story in them that deeply influences and dictates their food choices, preferences, dietary beliefs, conflicts, and love for food. How we were raised makes us who we are today. So I'm here today with Erica D'Arcangelo, author of A Story About Pizza. Erica is the granddaughter of an Italian immigrant who came to America and started working in the coal mines and then opened up a pizza place in Pennsylvania. The pizzeria turned into a place where her family grew, where they celebrated Christmas every year, and a place where local people of all ages would come in to eat and be part of the family. In short, pizza got woven into Erica's food story. While recovering from heart surgery, Erica had the chance to spend a lot of time with her father and the opportunity to dig deeper into the history and lore of the family pizza place, her grandfather, and the deep bond that the pizzeria linked her family with. And she was so inspired that she wrote a book about it. So I'm looking forward to diving into Erica's food story. We're going to discuss what it is like growing up Italian, the culture, and of course, the food. And I want to know how this way of growing up influenced who Erica is today. So welcome, Erica. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thanks for being here. I love hearing about people's food stories. I have my own food story, which maybe I'll share in a little bit. And I think that this just influences who we are as adults. I mean, we can't escape, right? Our cultures, our values. Even if it was positive, and sometimes there might be some negatives to how we grew up, and maybe we'll share that as well. But it is woven into our fabric. So let's just start from the beginning. I want to hear about your grandfather. I always love immigrant stories and how people came over here and got off the ground and sounds like created something really amazing for your family.
Absolutely. So, my grandfather was from Abruzzo, Italy, and he and his family immigrated to the United States around 1910, and they came from nothing. They showed up with the clothes on their back, a suitcase, and my great-grandfather got hired at a coal mining company called Berwyn White Coal Company. It was in Wimber, Pennsylvania. So the whole family went there, came in through Ellis Island, did their whole immigration thing that a lot of people did during that time, and then started working in the coal mines. Now, the interesting thing is that my grandfather had 3 brothers, so there were 4 boys. Now, at the age of 9 years old, my grandfather was pulled out of school and he started working in the coal mines, as did his older brother. And he was in the mines for the majority of his life. But his dream was to make pizza, and he was an amazing Italian cook. And he had this life of hardship where he just slaved away in the mines for, I would say, till his early 40s. And then finally the mines closed and he developed black lung. And he kind of goes on this journey of like opening this pizzeria.
That's amazing. I mean, just even his start where he's in the coal mines at such a young age. And I guess there's that determination back then, especially to just get to the United States. I mean, what was the motivation? Did he come with his family, with his parents?
Yeah, it was he and his parents, and they had 4 boys. They actually had a daughter. She was the 5th child, but she passed away as a baby. So they were reeling from this loss. And a lot of Italians immigrated around that time for a better life. Like now, people are trying to move to Italy. So back then, many people came over and they wanted to go to America. They wanted a better life. And I wouldn't say that they had a bad life necessarily, but it was a life of struggle and it was a life of unfair treatment. And especially in the mines, there weren't unions at that time, there wasn't child labor. And so the thing that I love most about the story and my grandfather, which I found out later, was just the resilience of the human spirit and just that persistence to keep going despite these barriers and these things that got in the way.
Yeah, I mean, you hear stories like that a lot back, when people were really immigrating into the United States, and they're just kind of awe-inspiring that
Yeah.
against all these odds, you come and you work in these horrific conditions, but then you open up a pizza place and thrive, and then here you are, as the granddaughter. And so I want to hear more about just how he got then to open the pizza place. And how old was he at that time?
So he was in his early 40s, and what happened was the mines closed. He ended up developing black lung, but he still needed to support his family. They still had to survive. So he ended up buying a building that was owned by Berwyn White Coal Mines. I think the building was built in 1905. And he opened a little Italian market and they sold like, pasta, tomato sauce. My grandma made bread, like those types of things. And so one day they decided to start making pizza and they started selling the pizza out of the market. And then they started to do takeout orders and it kind of evolved. And now here we are 65 years later, and it's like a full Italian restaurant and they have a bar and eat in and take out, and it's been thriving now for a long time, and he really opened this place so he had something to pass down to his kids because he didn't want his family having to work in the coal mines and repeat this same cycle that he had to go through.
Yeah. Well, so this place has been open for a very long time. It's still open now.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, most businesses, like restaurants especially, that you give them like maybe 5 years, maybe, and so that's incredible that the restaurant's been in the family. So tell me what happens next. I mean, he opens it. It sounds like he was fairly successful. Your dad, was he working? Were you all working there, as that now then as his granddaughter, were you working there?
Oh yeah, I mean, we started folding boxes when we were like 8 or 9 years old. He'd pay us 10 cents a box.
Hmm.
And I remember like he would be like 10 cents a box and we'd have our boxes caught up. We'd be like, I folded 80 and he would hand us some money. And then as we got older, it was like we learned how to bus tables and do dishes and make pizza. And then when you were like 16, 17, 18, you were like allowed to run the ovens and run the cash register and waitress. And that was like kind of when you made it, like you were in charge.
Yes, you got more responsibility as you got
Yeah,
older.
for sure. And funny enough, my grandfather passed away in 1999. And my father and my uncle, they were still running the pizzeria. Now, they both had other careers, so we had family members who always pitched in and helped. But when my father retired, he was a high school superintendent. He had heart surgery, and then he really got back involved a lot more during that time. It was when he was recovering from surgery. It was a few years after he retired. And I mean, I sort of left and had a marketing business and I lived in Florida. And that was the year I moved back because my dad had the surgery. And we both were like, I was like, hey, why don't you get out of the house? I'll come with you. I'll help you with your marketing. And it was very funny because at the time my dad he was just out of surgery and he was very grumpy. And he was like, I don't believe in marketing. And I said, okay, well, we'll just go together and I'll help you and it'll be fun. But it ended up being like something that we really bonded over because we would talk on the way there and the way back. And on the way home, he was always excited about who he saw and who he talked to. And I was filming content. And then we ended up getting a viral TikTok page. So the business got really busy and it just ended up being a really good experience for both of us.
Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, I'm sure he was probably more old school and didn't understand TikTok and social media. And I mean, I get that, trying to like explain that something like that to my mother would be like, she would have no idea what I was talking about, that, you have to like make videos and you have to. So it sounds like your influence then really boomed the business back.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. I would put him on lives on TikTok and he would be like, what is this? And I'm like, just talk about the business. It's like, just don't worry about it. And then, Yeah, it was really cool. And the coolest part was just, talking to him and being like, these people saw it on TikTok and these people traveled from this place to come in and eat. And I think it made him really proud because he was like, he was creating on the business. They restored the building. They have all the pictures of all the ancestors on the walls. And he did a coach's corner in the back because he was a coach. He was a basketball coach. So they have all the memorabilia of the coaching times and just ended up being a really cool thing.
I want to talk about the food
Yeah.
also, but it also sounds like the space, the pizza place itself is what really had an influence on you. I mean, almost like they could have been selling Chinese food. I mean, it wouldn't have right? I mean, am
Yeah,
I
no,
correct
it
in
was
saying that?
nostalgic. When I even now when I walk in there, it reminds me of my grandparents. My grandmother's old rocking chair is sitting there. There's pictures of all our aunts and uncles, and it's funny, it still smells the same as when I was a kid, and the pizza still tastes exactly the same. So I think not just for me, but for people in the community, it's a place that's just been there where people have celebrated birthdays and anniversaries and reunions, and there's just something special about it beyond just the food, even though I like the food.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like something very warm and comforting about like the local pizza place. So that's kind of neat that you were actually living that in your family. You were that that family, and that's nice. I want to talk about the food a little bit because, for me and like my food story, my grandparents on my dad's side, who were Jewish, taught me what I got from them is that food is love. But food is love in all the best ways. I mean, they were nurturing and comforting. And I still remember my grandmother's warm matzo ball soup that she would make
Mm.
on the holidays and the brisket. I mean, those are the memories that I have of her. And I loved her so much. And, on the other hand, I have other family members who were in big conflict with food, like dieting very young, always being conflicted with food, always concerned about weight. Women shouldn't eat a lot, just very,
Wow.
very fearful around food.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is what I'm talking about with like food stories. You really can get influenced by all the different aspects. So, so you grew up in a very Italian family with, and from what I know, I mean, food is central, right, to family gatherings,
Yeah.
everything, like a lot of cultures, but especially in an Italian family. So how did the pizza, the just growing up Italian like that, what was the influence on you?
I think it's a couple things. Of course, like the way that I grew up, it was like eat, eat, eat. Are you hungry? Let's get you some food. And as I got older, it was like, it's not that I love to eat and I love food, but I also had to look at the fact that when food is involved, there's discipline that's involved. Like I'm not going to sit down and eat 12 cupcakes. Would I like 12 cupcakes? Sure. Would I like to eat Krispy Kreme every day? Yeah, I love Krispy Kreme. Super good. But it's one of those things where, and I think everyone has their own kind of level of this, of like, you have your own integrity when it comes to food, of like, being able to control, being able to be healthy. And like, for example, like now, I know that I can't just eat pizza, pasta, sugar, because I don't feel well when I eat that kind of stuff all the time. So I have to have balance. Like if I go home, it's a pizza pasta cookie extravaganza. Well, I know that I need to get up and I need to have protein, I need to have eggs, and I need to have a shake, and I need to maybe grab, a salad or a green juice because I know I'm going to have pizza and pasta for dinner. So I think it was one of those things that I had to learn myself of like, okay, this stuff is all available and it's all delicious. But for me, it's important to be healthy and to be balanced and to keep that relationship with food healthy, even though you have access to unlimited amounts of quote unquote junk food.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess, right. Anywhere we go, we have like access to this
Yeah.
limitless amount of whatever food we want. And so so tell me about the women in your life, your grandma, your mom. I mean, how did they influence you in this Italian pizza environment?
Sure. So, it was very interesting because there were a mix of people. So, my grandmother, she was very Italian and she was, eat, eat, eat. And my mom, my grandma, even my grandma on my other side, like my mom's mom, they were all gifted and fabulous cooks and bakers, like incredible. Now, my grandma on my mom's side, she had modeled in New York. She was a wife in the 50s, and she definitely had this idea of limiting the food. And she was Polish, and she came from a family of, I think, 13.
This is your grandma on your
Yeah,
mom's
this is
side?
on my mom's side, and they didn't
Okay.
have a lot of food growing up. So it was definitely a different viewpoint. And one of the things that my mom said, which was interesting, I have a pizza podcast and I interviewed my parents, and my mom said that, you know, her family was like very conservative, and it was definitely like, things were controlled and it was more limited. And then when she came into my dad's family, she started working at the pizzeria when she was 14. My grandparents were like, here, eat, 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 unlimited amounts of food. Or did you eat? Are you hungry? And it's just so interesting. I think with the way that you're brought up, you may have one or the other. One where it might be limited, and then on the other side, you might have like a, hey, eat more, eat as much as you want, almost like you're being like, I don't want to say forced to eat, but just, encouraged, strongly encouraged to eat.
Yes. I mean, that's similar to I think my food story is that I had on my dad's side eat. Like food was love, not in a gluttonous way, but just like that's how love was expressed.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot I mean, I was trying a lot of different things even at a very young age. And I think it just expanded my palate and it gave me the courage, I guess, to just try new things rather than simply growing up like, oh, don't, maybe you
Yeah.
shouldn't, or, which I think turns people into picky eaters. And
Hmm.
so I'm always, I'm just very open to trying all sorts of foods and everything. But it sounds like, yeah, you had similar, one side of your family was a little more like
Food is
measured.
love.
Yeah, and one is like food is love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I get, do you feel like from your mom's side then that you've learned something or did what's the takeaway from that?
I think a lot of it is just having that discipline. And like, can I eat 12 pieces of pizza? Sure, I probably could. But, I'm gonna be mindful and I'm gonna have two slices of pizza or three slices of pizza. And I'm not saying like, don't eat or starve or something like that, but just the difference between the control and then being gluttonous, which I think can sometimes lead to just having an unhealthy habit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for me, my mom's side of the family was more, there was some around women enjoying food.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway from growing up is like the men got to eat whatever they needed to get big and strong, but women always had to watch their weight. And there was, I mean, I had a lot of like cooks in my family, but
Mhm.
there was always in just kind of lying in the background, this like feeling of you better watch what you're eating. From the time I
Yeah.
was probably very young and like about like 11 years old, I was like, it was like suggested I maybe go on a diet.
Oh, wow.
So it's, yeah, and then that takes some time to like untangle that, and like make peace with food and be okay with eating but luckily I had the balance of like my other side of the family, which was good.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I mean, do you feel like that's what was there in your family any shame around food?
No
Any
shame around food. But one thing that was really important is that we all exercise and we all played sports. But for me, that's more of a mental health thing than a physical health thing. Like I go to the gym every day mentally. Like it helps me mentally. I don't even know that it is a physical thing. It's like I feel like because, I have a lot of stuff, a lot of jobs and books and podcasts and this and that, and I need a stress relief. And some people may eat, some people drink. I like to exercise because that's what really gets me into a good mindset, I think.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think that exercise first and foremost for your mental health is great. So that's where, yeah. So, and that's a good lesson to take away from your family. So that, I mean, if they were always emphasizing physical activity, yeah, that sort of weaves into, like the food story a little bit. I sometimes think like food and exercise sort of one and the same, like
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
have
I mean,
one really without the other.
you bring it on when you eat and then you work it off. And, my dad was a coach. So we were really like, we had 5 kids in my family and it was crazy growing up. Like it was like pandemonium. People were just like wrestling. It was when like WWF was big and like there was just like noise, people were fighting. And so my mom was just like, please take some of these kids to basketball practice. So my dad was like, here's some basketballs. Like we'll see you when I'm done in an hour or two.
That's very funny. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, everyone has to get their energy out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you loved about just growing up with with the pizza place and or a couple things. I mean, what did you love about it? And what do you feel like you learned? Like, what are your takeaways from your experience? I mean, it was impactful enough for you to write a whole book about it. And I want to talk about the book in a second, but what were your loves and your lessons, I think, that you learned from just growing up in a pizza culture, I guess, if you will.
Sure, sure. I mean, growing up, I feel like I didn't appreciate it as much. I thought it was noisy and there were just people everywhere. And I was just like, oh, like sometimes I was like, this is so much. But now when I look back at it, I really appreciate it because you only have those times once with the people that you love. And so the fact that, like, my mom, my sister, my grandma, my best friend, my mom's best friend, we all worked together at the pizza shop on Fridays and we made bread and they made homemade jam and we laughed and we talked. And it was like, it was really special to have that. And I feel like, as an adult, it's given me a lot of stability because I have this foundation of this family and we're still really close. We're still all in a group text like every day. And I have to silence it because we're like, all day long and we're talking about our favorite pizzas. And my parents, they're in Italy this year because my dad's getting his citizenship. And it's very nice to have that foundation and that support and that love of your family.
Yeah, no, it sounds like the pizzeria was really like the center of your family, like almost like the rock. Any fear that it ever might close, or it sounds like it's busy as it can be right now.
It's so busy. I mean, I think we for sure always want to keep it in the family. And I'm hoping nothing lasts forever, I guess, but I'm hoping it will and it will just continue to be passed down. And, I'm hoping that, all my brothers and sisters, they just started having kids. So I'm like, everyone just needs to have like a lot of kids. So somebody just ends up deciding to take it.
Yeah. Do you live local to the pizza place still?
I live part of the time in Florida and I live part of the time local to the pizza place
Okay.
where my parents are. And I still do all the marketing for the pizzeria. So I travel up there and do videos and film content. And my mom owns a jam company. So I help her. And during the summer, it's, jam season, it's picking season. So that's a prime time to be up there. And in the winter, though, I definitely prefer Florida.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
Western PA, we're
I
like at zero
yeah,
degrees.
I'm in Connecticut. Sounds like your mom does a lot of growing then. She makes her
Yeah.
own jams and
Oh, yeah. My mom's a master gardener. And one of the things with the shop that we really like do is it's locally sourced ingredients. We do the unbrominated, unbleached flour. It's a healthier flour. And we grate the cheese, we make the dough fresh. So these are all really fresh ingredients. My mom grows San Marzano tomatoes, so we can roast tomatoes. She grows peppers and zucchini and like, I mean, berries and like you name it. She has like if you go there in August, you could the harvest there is incredible. So
So,
that was one thing.
yeah, I'm curious how, I could see how it might be easy in a pizza places like, oh, don't use the locals. I mean, that must be pricier and more labor
Yeah.
intensive to make things, like if I can just open a can and know who will know. But your family is not. So and that's fantastic. And I'm just curious how that came about. Where did your mom get the influence to become a master gardener? And I mean, I have a special place in my heart for gardeners and gardening because I think it's just the most important thing you can do towards healthier eating for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's fantastic that they do that. Where did that influence come from?
I think it was really from her mom and dad. They really had a green thumb. Like I remember going to my grandparents and them having like the most beautiful yard and all the flowers that they grew. And like I remember laying in the grass and it was the most beautiful grass that I had ever been, able to be around. And I think my mom just really, when we had home, she planted a lot of flowers and did a lot of landscaping. And then that kind of turned into growing food. And so that's just been, it's just so nice. It's an added bonus. And especially like, I guess as a creator, as a marketer, it's nice because I get to film that process and then show the food, which is like a really cool part of the restaurant that you don't always get to show because sometimes it is canned stuff. And it's kind of like, that's not really, it's fun to,
Right.
film a show is like, this beautiful picture of all the stuff that came from the garden.
Yeah. Is that something that's influenced you? Do you garden? Do you have a garden? Do you grow
No,
anything?
I want to. That's my goal. And there
Hmm.
are times, we'll do like, basil outside or we'll do like herbs and stuff like that for cooking. But what it's been lately, I mean, I really had to make a change. It was like 15 years, three marketing agencies just working, and then finally decided I need a break. And went home for the year to help my family, started to film the content and really got so inspired and wrote the book and wrote the children's series, now writing the next novel and almost became inspired to do marketing again after really feeling like I hate to say the word, but just burnout, just not wanting to do it anymore.
Hmm.
So that kind of revived my purpose to do that and also to live a more, I think, organic, thoughtful life.
Hmm. Great. Well, I'm sure, I think all those influences, even if, you're not directly gardening right now, but maybe that's just influencing you in other secondary ways,
Yeah,
right? To
yeah, the
just maybe,
writing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the book. So I obviously you got inspired to write the book because of, sounds like were having conversations with your dad and you started talking more about your grandfather and how, his history and everything. Tell me how you got I mean, writing a book is no small feat. So what really like pushed you over to think say like this would be a great idea to write a book?
So, it was interesting because we had one of our companies was a movie production company or a film production company. And one of my friends, he was the director, he had made a film and it was about a life and culture in Mexico and about a father, about a son who lost his grandfather. And the grandfather raised him, and it was a very beautiful story. And we were talking about our next movie project. And I was thinking, like, this would be a really cool movie project. And so he said, well, yeah, but usually you first need a book. And I was like, okay, well, like, I can probably write a book. Like, I'm so inspired by the story. And like, I kind of wanted to put it down on paper anyway. And so we initially were like, maybe this would be a really cool movie to capture. And so then I wrote the book and they were both like, it was my husband and our partner. And they were both like shocked. They were like, oh, you wrote the book. I was like, well, yeah, because this might be a really, beautiful movie. And so then after I wrote the book, I didn't know what to do with it because I'd never written a book. So I just let it sit for like 4 months. And then
Hmm.
I thought, okay, well, I went to school for marketing. I've been doing marketing for 20 years here. So like, let me just use what I know here and then put the book out. And then it almost like the book inspired the children's series and inspired the podcast and inspired the next novel, which I'm writing now. So it was like the book was the center of it all, which was the pizza place.
Hmm. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great. It definitely gets the word out. And like I said, I mean, I think I love any stories about your, you know, grandparents or great grandparents immigrating over and how you then came to be, here and today. So that's wonderful. So I wanted to ask you two questions. Number one, how often do you actually eat pizza now?
Oh, more than I should. So it's so funny because now I have my pizza story podcast and I do probably like I film maybe 2 or 3 a week, every week, maybe four. And every day my husband will be like, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, oh, for dinner, like, and I'm like, okay, well, let's have like, chicken, steak, whatever, healthy. And then I get off the phone from doing the podcast and I'm been looking at their pizza on Instagram. And he's like, what do you want for dinner? And I'm like, pizza. So like, now it's been like probably 3, 4 nights a week of pizza, which we were trying to limit it to one, but I could eat it every day. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think I might be able to eat pizza every single day too, as long as it's really great. Do you find that you're like kind of in pizza competition? Do you feel like your pizza from your family's place is the best pizza and
Oh,
other
it will always be the number one favorite. I have a top 10 list and I have it on my blog and I love that pizza. It's amazing, but there's also some really good pizzerias down in Florida. Like there's one called Cristino's. They're from Italy. They've been in business forever. I think we've been going there 15, 20 years. One called Verola's, the guys from New York. It's like a very traditional New York slice. And so we definitely go and we find pizzerias and we try them. And, there's one in Tampa called Forbici. It's amazing. It's my husband's favorite pizza. So we're always out and about looking for, the next great pizza, I guess.
Yeah, well, I live not too far from New Haven, which is sort of like is
Pizza
that supposed to be
capital.
the pizza capital of the world or the country? I don't know. But yeah, so I've gone there a couple of times and sat and waited in lines for half an hour to get into the pizza place.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun. So where can people find you, find your book, and how do they get to know more about you?
Well, if you just search a story about pizza or you go to a storyaboutpizza.com, you can find everything about me in the book. You can Google me online and you'll see a bunch of, author stuff on there. But that's probably the easiest way is just a story about pizza in Google.
Okay, great. And it sounds like there might be a movie in the works. Is that what's happening?
I mean, I hope. I don't know. I mean, right now, so we did the book and we did a trailer for a series about family-owned pizzerias. And we did this on my family's pizza place. It's on my YouTube channel and we're going to do a full episode, but what I'd love to do is some of the podcasts I've done with some really cool people in the pizza industries. I'd love to go do a full episode of like going to see them and filming and stuff like that. But right now we're doing the podcast and I guess we'll see how it goes. But I mean, goal would be a movie would be the best. Like that'd be the end goal, I think.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great. All right. Well, we'll be, watching and waiting for the movie. It sounds great. Erica, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your real food story and I love it. I love your grandfather's story and how they came over and sounds sounds like they obviously really influenced you and here you are writing a book about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
And as always, if you loved this podcast, please consider gifting me with a 5-star review. It is so helpful for me to get the word out on real eating, our real bodies, and real food stories. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye for now.